Hello everyone, welcome back to another video and a quick update I want to give on, first of all, this tiger bark ficus that you can see right here that I have pruned back quite considerably and quite drastically. To give you already a view of it, you can see right here, basically I took out a huge chunk of the tree. I will also put in footage of it, how it looked previously. I want to talk a bit about this one because there's some interesting stuff going on with it at the moment, as you can probably already see here on the video. And I will also later on still show two cuttings that I took from ficus, one actually from this one right here, and also one from a Ficus benjamina, and also simply give you an update on how they are doing at the moment. But I would say let's get right into looking a bit closer at this tiger bark ficus right here. Let me give you a short overview of it by simply showing you all the different angles of the tree. You can see still it is definitely a bonsai in the making. When I bought it, what first came to my mind was that the taper was simply not where I wanted it to be. It had basically no taper all the way up to the apex of the tree. So I did come to the decision to cut it back that drastically, simply to, in the future, give it a better outlook on taper or the possibility of potential taper. So, of course, my goal was with this tree, once I cut it back from this spot here, that we will see some back budding going on, and definitely, as you can see right here already, we do achieve exactly this desired back budding on this tree at the moment. So basically from all the growth nodes, you can see right here there is already new shoots forming, really in the early stage still. So they probably started to appear, I would say, roughly a week ago, so it does take quite a while for them to develop now. But as it has happened and started, I can see it now also here from a lower point starting. And only now I also see that up here there is a tiny little leaf already forming, so the beginning of a shoot already, really from basically where we have this side branch, the one that we left on anyway. Giving you an idea what the goal is for this tree is basically to develop a new apex that will go more in this direction. Just have a nice play with this accent stone in here. So giving it this really nice look of basically a tree that giving shade to this little accent stone right down here. So that is the future goal. Of course, we speak here of probably years until it will have developed in a way that I will have the desired state on this tree. But I think it was an important first initial step we took with simply doing this drastic prune back that in the end will benefit this tree enormously. Because before, as often is the case when the taper is missing, it's just looked out of proportion. So the tree really didn't look like a mature tree. It looked like a very uniform stick in a pot, basically. Because when we look at bonsai, of course, what we do want is a wide base of the trunk, way wider than, for example, you would actually see it in a natural tree, and that is simply because of the perspective of a big tree. You don't need that drastic of taper for it to actually look like a mature tree. In smaller trees, so in bonsai, but we do need this more drastic reduction of width in the trunk to achieve this look of an old mature tree. So definitely happy to see now new shoots forming here, and really motivated already on how this tree will develop in the next growth season. Now, of course, end of growth season, I do not expect this shoots here to develop too much in the next couple of months. But of course, if there is some major progress on it, I will keep you updated. But at this moment, I already want to move on, actually, as I said, to one or two of cuttings that I took in the last couple of months and weeks. So one is a bit older, one is a bit younger, and I would start with a bit older one, which is a cutting from a Ficus benjamina that I took. Basically, I took this cutting sometime in the beginning of growth season, I think, actually. So it must have been May or June, I guess. Don't have the exact date in my head right now, but it has established itself quite nicely in simply a terracotta pot, where normally when I take ficus cuttings, I always just stick them in a terracotta pot because I think they look nice in there. I'm good with managing the watering schedule in terracotta, so that's where they go in normally when I take cuttings. Maybe something interesting on this one, I'm not sure if it comes out on video that well, but there is some aerial roots on this one. So it is from a tree where I have developed a lot of aerial roots on. So when I took the cutting, of course, I tried to salvage as many aerial roots as possible also on this cutting. And I think they played an important role in how quickly this cutting actually adapted to this new terracotta pot, because there was already root mass in a sense to work with and for the tree to sustain itself. So these aerial roots, of course, then very much come into play in sustaining the tree with water and being able for it to maybe take a bit longer to form really the base roots in the pot from where we cut it. So definitely gave it probably a bit of a head start already in its progress of becoming a fully developed cutting. The shape of it is very wild at the moment, so with cuttings I don't go too much into already structural pruning, especially now that the growth season is almost over. I do probably see in the future for it more of a cascade shape, maybe a semi-cascade shape, because just naturally the way it is already now, leaning of course very much to this side, of course would then benefit the tree quite nicely. I do, however, see that there is maybe even potential for a formal upright, or an informal upright. So we could also lift this, switch the trunk quite considerably in how it is potted up right at the moment. So I would say not until I really take it out of this pot and look at the root mass underneath and what trunk there's still maybe a bit hidden, I wouldn't be 100% certain in which direction I would go with this tree. But at the moment, I'm just happy that it is a healthy cutting, that in the end is the goal for it at the moment, just to grow healthier and getting more established, and then really starting to work on a final shape, or the beginning of a final shape at a later point. So this would have been my Ficus benjamina cutting. Quite easy to take care of as most ficus. And we have another cutting right here that is actually from the tree that I showed you before. Part of the apex that I simply decided to pot up and see if this very thick piece of ficus would actually root. And I'm not fully sure there are already roots developing, but it has been a couple of months now since I actually took this big chunk off of the tree, and it's still doing well, hasn't lost any leaves since I have actually pruned it back and took this cutting. So I do think there is some roots developing. There must be, basically, because otherwise I don't think it would store the water for that long. So I'm definitely very happy also with this cutting. Once again, I do believe a semi-cascade would really fit this tree. Let me show you from this angle, for example. We could still prune back this leader here a bit, have this one still cascading a bit more, but I already think it has a very interesting shape. And I do love how gnarly the trunk actually already looks, because it was such a big cutting actually that it already looks like a very old, gnarly tree with a lot of former branches that have been here, that have been taken out and calloused over. So already it looks like a tree with a lot of history and a lot of just age in it. So definitely happy with it. Really hope that it has developed roots, or is developing roots at the moment, because this is really a cutting I would be astounded if it actually takes and I get away with taking such a big cutting and it actually roots. That of course would be amazing. Otherwise, of course, if I would see it's not possible in the future, I would rather focus on smaller cuttings, like for example this one. But if it takes without any rooting hormone or anything, so I didn't put any rooting hormone on it, then I would really be stoked to see that this one is actually viable. And probably in the future I would then also with other trees see how big the cuttings can be, that they are still viable and that they still will take root. Of course, ficus is very forgiving when it comes to that. It is in general, of course, a species that roots quite easily. So I thought, why not give it a try with ficus? If any would take it, is probably ficus, because it's just so prolific when it comes to rooting when you take cuttings. So why not at least try it with this one? So we'll also, of course, keep you updated about this cutting here and also the benjamina cutting that I showed you before. If you have any questions regarding this cutting, the benjamina cutting, or also of course my ficus, tigerbark ficus bonsai that is very much in the making, feel free to leave those questions or tips or just comments in the comment section below. If you enjoy this channel, of course, I will really appreciate if you subscribe to it. And if you enjoyed this specific video, of course, also just leave a like. I would really appreciate that. And hopefully then I will see you also in the next video. Until then, goodbye.